Let's go ahead and get started with the August meeting of Richmond Amateur Radio Club. Any visitors here today, other than us? Any visitors here today? Let's go ahead and, if no visitors, get started with the business portion of our meeting. I'm sure everyone has read the minutes and corrected them that Armin put in the newsletter. Anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes as recorded by Armin? And I request a motion to approve the minutes. Second?
So moved.
No one approves them? All right. Ken, do you have a treasurer's report for us this afternoon?
Hold on. You need to stop your screen share. There. Treasurer's report. We had some income this month. Yay! We started 17,964. Mute your audio. And 8 cents. We had $11 come in dues. But we had a lot of bills. We had to pay for the P.O. box. That was $232. We have a RARC at email.com. That's $29.99 for the year. Hartford Insurance, which is our liability insurance, not our personal insurance. That's $425. 87 cents on the $11 to PayPal. And we had to buy me a new book for extra, $26.19. So $714.05, bringing us down to $17,261.03 left in the account. So not too bad. We have one new member, a Corbett Landis. Does not have a license. So, can I have a motion to accept?
We accept it.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Super. Now a new member. So we're all set with that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ken.
Super.
Any old business that we need to talk about? As far as new business, election time is coming up, and there is a selection committee, which is myself, Bruce, and Wynn, and I know there are people out there dying to have this job, and all the prestige, income, fame, and everything. So, if anyone is interested in seeking elected office to the club, please let one of us know. Any new business, other new business? Okay, anything else anyone wants to talk about in the business area before we close the business part of the meeting?
Do the classes?
That's not going to be business.
Oh, that's not business, okay.
Go ahead, did you have?
Yeah, I have one thing in new business. I'll stand and get a little closer. We've had complaints, most of you know, about the audio. I'll stand over here for you. You don't have to move. About the audio from the owls in this room. An echo is one. And I usually tell them, if you come in and sit in this room, you'll hear the echo for yourself. So it's inherent in the size of this room, all the hard surfaces, the ceiling, the walls, the floor. So it's an issue. The other one is if Tom in the back there would just talk in his normal voice, his distance from the owls and all, occasionally the owl will clip a syllable, usually the first one, because the owl's going, where is he? And the 360-degree microphones have to find him, and that takes a teeny bit of time, especially if he's soft. Now, if he stands up and he talks like this, it's not going to be a problem. They'll hear everything you have to say. Standing here, the owl will hear me. One solution that I have proposed, and talked briefly with Tom, is to have our meetings in a smaller room in the church. Turns out the church is very happy to have us in any room that we choose. One room that I thought of that would hold the normal that we have is the tech classroom on the second floor. Okay? It would easily accommodate us. It's a smaller room, does not have an inherent echo in it. There's a couple rooms off of the gym that we could use. However, pickleball is sort of king in the gym. And if they're playing pickleball while we're having a meeting, we'll probably hear the pickleball over the meeting. So that's one of the drawbacks of that. But it's something to consider, okay? That we could maybe go to a different room if you don't know what the classrooms look like. As I say, that one is the larger of the three that are up there that we have used in the past. So it's an alternative if the club wants to.
Does the tech room upstairs have a screen like this?
No. It does have,
On the screen?
There's a large screen TV,
has a large screen TV
but
that we
nothing
could use.
like this.
But
But-
something that would fill the funds like this.
Yeah, it would, yeah. So, in most of the rooms we would go to, we would have to have a portable screen or something.
We
put in.
have some portable screens at the church. If you want to dedicate one to the room, you take a projector and it's
Yeah.
not a problem.
So, anyway, it's an alternative. Of course, for the people here, there's not a whole lot of difference other than you'll be a little closer to your neighbor.
Which may not be a good thing with the
Which may not be a good thing, I don't know.
upcoming infectious disease.
Will, you had a question or comment?
I was just going to add that I can definitely hear the issue on the audio in the YouTube. So we can definitely hear what you guys are talking about. We're not like ignoring the issue. It's just, I agree with Ken, and we were just emailing about this. We just don't think there's a better solution. We really think it is the room. And, if everyone speaks up, like I'm a very quiet person. By definition, I would never talk loudly. But if we can all try to either remember or, that was a really good idea on Ken's part, but there really is no solution that we've come up with that's as easy as the owls or without, I know me, I come from a background with like live sound in like churches or theaters, so aside from like a really wacky setup, but even when we had the microphone that got passed around, then people would forget to use it. So, we're not trying to be grouchy, but I mean, we're aware that we can hear it, but we think, we can figure it out.
I'm sorry? Somebody had a comment?
I think it's something.
Oh.
So, but anyway, we can definitely hear the issue on the YouTube, but I agree with what Ken is saying. We all agree, multiple people are agreeing with Ken on the Zoom committee. So, yeah.
Okay, if that's all the business, I seek a motion to end the business portion of the meeting. Second, all in favor? I remembered everybody was shown, I don't remember you, Bruce, but, so I was looking at the ban conditions of propagation, said the solar flux was 336, and the sunspot number was 382, and a few years ago there were 0 sunspots at the top. I've never seen numbers that high, and on the website it says conditions are good. I went to 10 meters, nothing. 20 meters, nothing. 15 meters, one station from Finland that was coming in very nicely. Unless everybody was on FT8, I don't know where everybody was. Anybody have a different experience with what should be good ban conditions?
Wednesday, I got St. Petersburg, Russia, and Trinidad, interestingly enough, on 10 meters.
But I've never seen solar flux that high, not even
But even
close.
with that,
So I don't know whether it's causing so much absorption, that if that's the case, it should be better in the evening.
my understanding is it gets the D layer, which is the
That's
lower
right, but
one,
it's-
and it tends to absorb signals.
More so for the lower frequencies.
Yes.
Did you have a comment, sir?
Yes, I worked Charles Island this afternoon before I headed up here from the rig. I worked Charles Island this afternoon on 12 meters
On 12.
and with signals. but there are a couple of CMAs that are headed this way, and when they hit, it will disturb the atmosphere enough, there will be radio
Right,
wire.
but I'm talking about today. The
Yes,
planetary K index is 1.7, so and then there was not any noise. The guy from Finland was coming in beautiful, but I just
I
don't.
also could not work, the jar silent on 10 meter CW, I can hear it. But
So I did not check it
Source is
well.
very high.
Anyway, it's kind of, I guess, I'm hoping that when the equinoctial conditions come in, the solar flux will still be that high. Did you want to say something, Laura?
Well, I was just gonna say.
Don't brag, you stop bragging. Okay, go ahead.
Travis Jarvis Island Station on CW on 80 meters in the morning. Because I got it.
Now, where
I'm
is,
a little
for,
pissed off.
where's Jarvis Island?
South of Hawaii, north of Cook Island.
Okay.
Where is Cook Island?
South.
Do you have comments, sir?
I was going to add to that I saw from Frank with 3LPL in Maryland, who does a lot of propagation prediction. He sent a link out of a historical site on solar fluxes back in the 20s, I think. If you go back to 1957,
Yeah.
at the peak of the sunspot, the biggest sunspot we've ever experienced, the max solar flux that was reached in that was 383.
That's, was
So
it,
we're at 332.
and that was supposedly
Yeah,
a historical condition.
right. So we're at 332. So we are near historical.
So I don't know what, unless
This
it's,
fall is going to be incredible.
if we go back and check tonight when the sun goes down, maybe it'll be better on 20 meters, I don't know.
It's just the summertime.
Go ahead.
I worked into Europe and Australia last night till 2 a.m., just one after another. I worked 50 contacts last night, and it was going strong. And all day, I made another 30 or 40 contacts.
Today?
On 15
On
and
what,
17.
FTA?
Yeah, FTA.
Oh, FTA, well, you know.
I can hear
Even voice was perfect. Yeah, what the.
So I don't know, I may have been on a bad time.
One of those solar fluxes was it 2 days ago, and the other one occurred literally today.
Well, it's you're sure you get a CME, and you get the X-ray, X-rays and the energetic
Right,
photons and all,
absolutely.
but that wasn't today.
So, but
Yeah, I know.
They should be here riding and affecting us.
Not yet. Did you have anything else to say, Will?
Well, I was just gonna add, I'm up really late and still have issues at night, and I'm gonna regroup with Lauren on FT8, but even on FT8,
I mean, I didn't check FTA because I'm
you're scared of FT8.
no, I'm not scared of it. I just I would rather talk.
Oh, no, I think he's just scared of it.
No, I'm not scared of it.
No,
My
some of it's
computer.
like single sideband. I like to talk to people. You know?
I like
Oh,
single
I
side.
like side effects.
So I saw a product that I thought was interesting. It's made by Flatlanders. It's a company who makes aftermarket mirrors for vehicles, but the owner is a ham, and he's making an in-fed half-wave antenna. It's for 40 meters, but it's like, it looks like a tuna can. It's got a SO239 connector on it. It's got the toroid on the inside, and then it's got a winder. It's a 3D printed case. It's got a little hand crank on it. Kind of
That's
looks.
a really bad.
So they're kind of pricey, like 85 bucks. Anyway, so but it looked like something you could throw in your go kit
Yeah.
and just reel it out there.
Like on vacation, too.
So I'm going to recognize the show and tell people, but right now I want Bruce to come up and talk to us about the schools.
All right, we're set up for the schools for the fall. And because of the way the season works, our testing date is November 9th. And you know, what we do is we take the test date and we back up as many weeks as we have to take care of the classes. So tech is a full 10 weeks, so they get all the details, which is good for new tech students. Let's see, the registration for that is August 27th. So if you know somebody who wants to take tech, or you want to advise them to take tech, tell them to move on it, because it's August 27th is the registration for that. They register online. I have to get my eyeballs out here so I can see what I'm doing. And then they're going to meet from September 3rd to November 5th. So they'll be ready for the November 6th, November 9th testing. General is going to be 5 weeks, but Dave has to miss a week in there. So he set it up for September 26th to October 24th. And the deadline for registration is the 20th of September. The extra is 6. October 1st to November 5th. Registration is September 24th. All of that's on our website. Now, what we've done for the skills seminars is we usually don't get many signups in the fall. So our note to people, we sent this out to all the other clubs, is if you're interested, send an email note to school@rarclub.net, and if we get enough people, then we'll set up the seminars. But usually there's no use offering them in the fall unless we get some people that are interested. So that's kind of where we are. Any questions on that?
While there, Bruce, any comments about the remote station? How's that work?
Remote stations seem to be working fine. I've had no problems with it. I haven't heard any comments about it. Have you?
It's been fine.
Yep.
The only issue we have is a lot of the software that we're currently using, they want to discontinue it or charge us way more than the hours cost to have it every year.
This is a remote ham server?
No, not remote hands, but the NP, what are the two that?
Oh, VNC.
VNC and then the other one.
Team, yes. In order for us to manage that computer upstairs here, we have to get into it through VNC and take control of it. And VNC, any of you who use it know that they're taking away the freebie. There's supposed to be a way to get a version of the freebie because it was originally an open source piece of software. So we got to figure out what happens with that. We've got to find a way of replacing that because we talked to Team Viewer, they said, oh, you're a nonprofit, we'll do it for $1,000 a year. And we're thinking, I don't think that's going to happen. There is a way to do this kind of stuff yourself, and I know some of the techniques, and I think I can find a skilled programmer who can probably figure out how to do the rest of it. So, we'll go from there. Anyway,
And of course, by FCC rules, we have 3 minutes to shut down the station if it malfunctions. So that's what we use. So we can't have the remote station if we don't have a way to handle that. So that was the only thing I was bringing up because Bruce brought it up to my attention that we have some issues around that.
Wayne, any comments about the D-Star repeaters? That's all going good?
Everything's working good.
Okay, so Steve Bowles, come up and share with us.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Well, you guys led into my little show and tell very nicely. Thursday we were having conversations about Morse code, and Lauren says, well, I made a contact to Jarvis Island and I was using CW. Well, there are a few of us in here that particularly like CW and enjoy CW. We can go back a little ways. We looked at modern technology when Daryl, where are you, Daryl? But Daryl brought in a beautiful piece of modern equipment, which we enjoyed seeing, just absolutely amazing. And then Dan had a good show and tell, modern equipment. So I want to turn back time about 100 years. I like shiny objects, and every now and then I'm in a place where I find something. And I bought this at auction in Crewe, Virginia, a number of years ago. And what makes it particularly interesting is apparently it was some sort of a display piece. I don't know, it could have been in a museum, it could have been in a home, but somebody took some time and did a very nice job putting it together. And it is a Western Electric sounder, and it's in a Western Electric J38 key. And the title on it says Western Union Telegraph Company, and you can read it says down below here, date 1890. So just for fun, I thought I would bring it in, and we talk about Morse code, all these pretty tones that you hear on the radio. Well, here's what you would have heard 100 years ago. And originally, these were designed to go to a teletype machine, and they would print out a tape. And if you got a Western Union telegram years ago, a tape would run, and then you would snip the tape and glue it to the Western Union tag. Well, interestingly enough, people found that in time, they could read the Morse faster than the machine could copy it. So interestingly enough, people began copying Morse in their head. So since you guys talked about Morse, here's a little bit of Morse from way back when. Now this pretty little box back here does nothing more than hide a 9-volt battery. Now this device would have probably been powered with 9 90 or 100 or more volts. So the relay, the sounder, would actually activate faster. So you could use, again, Vibroplex developed the bug, and the bug was used very commonly with these. But if you go too fast, the sounder simply won't activate fast enough. But it's up here for you to look at and feel free to play with it. But just a sidebar here. A number of years ago, I worked for Dominion Virginia Power, and we had an engineers club. And every now and then, the engineers club would meet off-site and enjoy a tour or visiting a certain location. Well, we visited the Railroad Museum. We visited the station master's office, and there was a sounder and a key on the desk. I said, oh, sounder, couldn't think anything more about it. As the tour progressed, we ended up in the baggage compartment. There was a desk, a sounder, and a key. Well, who am I to resist the key? Okay. Attention. This is Whiskey 4 Sierra Bravo. And a minute or two later, it came back. This is HTZ. It was John DeMeo.
Wow.
I didn't know John at the time. And then he came back. This is John. And that was kind of the beginning of a long-distance friendship. And then ultimately, in the radio club, it continued. Anyway, this is a little ancient history. This is exactly how I found it. Who knows, the dust on it might be great Caesar's ashes, as far as I know. So it hasn't been dusted, but feel free to play with it a little bit. And like I said, I like shiny objects, and I collect things like this. And feel free to look at it. This is how we all began back in the day, before all the modern technology. Thank you so much.
Volker, tell us what you have brought to show us today.
Well, I have no power, so there's not much to show. I have to move over later on. I don't know how many people use it. It's a hand clock, Linux version, and I believe it works fantastic. Very easy to set up. I'm not a Linux person by all means, but I will move over in the break onto the other table and see if I have power there, and then I'll fire it up.
All right, anybody else have any interesting experiences, bragging to share with us? Okay, why don't we take maybe a 5-minute break, and then we'll have Henry Buzz tell us about E&E.
QOC. I have a QSL card from like 1964 when I worked in as WA4 QOC, and I was WA4 SSG. And we've known each other for 60 years. Something like that.
Long time.
We have a couple of other things in common. We both worked in television, me for a little while, him for a long time. And we were both police officers for a couple of years. He was with Henrico, and I was with the Richmond City Police Department. I remember one night I actually went on a call, and you were there. We saw each other on a call across the lines.
9 Mile.
Yeah, it was 9 Mile Road, I think. And I'm like, Henry, what are you doing here? So anyway, but we stayed in touch all these years. Henry is an extra class operator, and I don't have to tell you that. And he lucked into this call site. It was a random call site. You got N4HB.
No, I actually applied for that.
Yeah.
They allowed me to.
You got it when the getting was good, before all the 1x2s got away. Henry worked at Channel 12 for many years. He retired as the vice president of engineering for the group owned by, I guess it was Lincoln Broadcasting then, that owned Channel 12, and WBTV in Charlotte, WCSC in Charleston, and his partner in crime is right over here, one of our guests, Ray, AB4SF, who also worked at Channel 12 for 30 years. Henry, these two guys, that was the days when everybody in a broadcast station had a ham license, but now they all have IT experience, I guess, right? They don't know anything about radio and transmitters so much anymore. Henry's a member of the DXCC Honor Roll, which is a big deal. There's not that many people. What do you have to get? How many countries now to be on the Honor Roll? 300?
Do you have to have within 10? I think it's 332.
You have to be within 10.
Yeah, I think I've got like 335.
335 countries.
I'm about 5 away. I don't think I'll ever see number 1 because you can't work North Korea. So that took it, at least not in my lifetime.
He's got quite a station in Reedville. You're going to see a little bit of video of some of it. When you see some of these things in the video, it's not the whole station. That's just like one operating position in the station, which has, you know, some very impressive equipment. And he has a very understanding wife who is now WA4QOC. So that's why he has a couple of towers in his front yard, and she doesn't mind because she's a ham too. And both of his sons are ham operators. Henry's got equipment to go from 160 meters to 10 gigahertz. That's you know, the other end of the spectrum. You can cook a hot dog on your 10 gigahertz microwave antenna there. He's the president of the Rappahannock Amateur Radio Association in Tappahannock, Reedville area, and they have a repeater, W4NNK, and he was kind enough to come up here and tell us about Moonbound, something that I've never done, don't know anything about it, but I've just heard about it, read about it, and he's actually done it. So he's going to tell us how it works, and then there'll be time for some questions at the end. So Henry, go ahead.
And I'll rely on you guys to handle this part. There you go.
Okay.
Am I in the right spot?
You're in the right spot.
So how many of you hams out there have ever wanted to bounce signals on the moon? Okay. I did too. And I didn't do it till about 6-7 years ago. Because as you see, what happened was when it came out with programs like WSJT, it made it feasible, but because then it was virtually impossible unless you had a huge, huge station with huge arrays. And we'll see about that. Does everybody hear me? They hear me okay on the Zoom? Okay. I put my glasses on so it's not doing here. Okay. What are the main challenges that we're going to be facing on EME? And that's the first thing you ask yourself. And by the way, if you still want to tackle this after the presentation, I have some how-to handouts. What are the main challenges? Band noise levels, both man-made and natural. We're all familiar with that, right? Overcoming tremendous path loss between the Earth and the Moon. Faraday rotation between H and V polarizations, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Libration fading, which is a factor, not a huge factor, but I'll show you some examples. You've probably never heard of that. Doppler shift, everybody knows like a train goes by, what happens to the audio frequency, right? Happens in radio frequencies also. It happens between the moon and the Earth. It sounds like a lot to overcome, but with today's technology, it makes it much easier for those who want an exciting adventure into our hobby. And I'm here to tell you, with your first QSO on the moon, you're going to say, I never thought I could do this. It's fun. So let's look at the technical obstacles and how we overcome them. Just how does the moon come into play in order to make these around-the-world contacts on the VHF and UHF bands, and even on the microwave bands? And we had, you guys were talking earlier about absorption and F2 propagation and where the sunspots are. This doesn't come into play up here. It's always the same. It's just, I'll show you some interesting stuff. Think of the moon as a passive reflector. When you look up, the VHF range and higher frequencies do not normally reflect off of the various layers of the ionosphere, such as the F2 layer, which we talked about earlier, which we use to reflect low-band signals. VHF and higher signals go straight through, generally, unless high sunspot cycles reflect some of them. They think hopefully for those that like to get on 6 meters. That's coming. If we can target and track the moon, we can bounce those signals off of it. The moon now becomes that passive reflector, but it's anything but flat, like a mirror. So it's also an extremely poor reflector. And you can see just how poor it is. The physics, and it's a lot of physics involved in this. It's crazy. How do we overcome those challenges for successful EME contact? Noise levels. What you're familiar with. Atmospheric noise. This is the stuff you guys are going to encounter every day on your low bands. Man-made, such as electrical device or devices that generate noise inside your home or in close proximity to your shack. Noisy power lines, we've all had to deal with that. Any of these can make very weak radio signals difficult to copy. It can make two-way contacts difficult. Using the moon as a passive reflector causes its own set of noise-related issues, but not the kinds you might be thinking about. Planets, stars, etc. all generate noise, but the sun is the biggest noise generator of them all. When it's in close proximity to the moon, it makes EME contacts virtually impossible. For amateurs, it is impossible. The government might be able to do it, but they got stuff we don't know about. So they also found out years ago that that they can bounce signals off the moon. It's not affected by a nuclear explosion. And so they've done a lot of experimenting up there. It's not affected by that. They can't just, you can wipe out. If they can harden their gear, they can still communicate. And they do it off the moon. This right here is a diagram, and this happens to be this month. And I don't have a pointer, but I'll try to walk you through this. Well, maybe I can do it with this right here. No, okay. A little awkward, guys. Okay, see this red line right here? That red line is degradation. And that is what you see right here, this line. Here we are on the 10th. So we're right here. Whoop. So we're on the 10th. See the line right here? If we cross over here and go in here, it shows you that that is a fairly usable, time of the month, but not as good as it could be. Guess where the moon and the sun line up? See that? That's virtually unusable at that point, okay? So we have, out of a 27.5-day cycle, which is a moon cycle, we have, look what happens over here towards the end of the month. Look at how good it gets, right? Gets low, kind of low right there. That's really good conditions. But here's another line we're going to look at. This yellow line is moon distance. The moon travels closer to, in its monthly cycle, gets about 37,000 miles closer. It's an elliptical circuit. It's not a round, okay? It's elliptical, so it gets closer to the Earth. When it gets closer to the Earth, you don't have to, signals don't have to transfer as far. So we actually, we'll talk about that in a minute. This other one, this blue line, is declination. And we're not going to worry a lot about declination, but basically it's moon wobble. The moon actually, in reference to the equator, will shift about 26 degrees through the month, positive and negative, and we'll show you that in an animation. Well, what's important, this is you can get this, and I've got the handouts have where to find this propagation for VHF. not only for 2 meters, but for other stuff too you might want to be interested in operating. But EME is part of it. And that's, like I said, that's part of this month right here. Backwards. Okay, path loss. Path loss is due to the distance to and from the moon. That's another, something we got to overcome. This path loss is huge due to the fact the moon is a very poor reflector, not like a mirror. Only approximately 6% of your transmitted signal will be reflected back to Earth, and that's at best. 6%. How much loss is there because of the low level of signal, the distance that the signal has to travel? Anybody got to take a stab at this?
136 dB.
Double it. Approximately 252 dB at 2 meters. Now, if you want, somebody we talked about 1296, 271 dB of loss. That's a lot of loss. Huge amount. So, as you can see, it's pretty significant. The path loss is also variable due to the distance from the Earth, moon to the Earth. We talked about that. It's getting closer. So that actually is to our advantage. When the moon cycle, as you saw down there on the red line, is in closer proximity, it's gonna help us. Perigee, what we call that, this is just for some, is the nomenclature for how closest the moon is to the Earth. Everybody know what another one is? Apogee. That's when it's the furthest away. That's when you have the most path loss, is when it's the furthest away, and it's not in the way of the sun's not looking at it. This distance can add or subtract about 2.5 dB to the gain or loss of the overall signal for small stations, and we will talk about that because this is where you will actually see that you can almost make this work. It doesn't seem like much, but 2.5 dB can make the difference between making or not making the EME contact. Adding 2.5 dB has the same effect of almost doubling your RF power output, and it also gets you 2.5 dB overall receive signal. So that's going to be that's helpful, right?
3 dB is doubling, so
I'm sorry?
3 dB is doubling, so you're...
Yes, that's what I say. It's almost double. 2.5 dB is virtually double, but it's not quite there.
Right.
But it's huge because it makes a lot of difference. Now, the next thing we have to deal with is not just the path loss and all the noise, but Faraday rotation. Anybody know what Faraday rotation is? All right, what is it?
So it's a rotation of the plane of polarization.
Well, here's what it is. When a signal of a certain polarized, it may they be vertical, horizontal, circular, it doesn't make any difference. Electromagnetic wave, okay, radio waves. It will rotate its polarization in a magnetic field. What's the magnetic field? It's all the way around the Earth, right? Mm-hmm. So as soon as it encounters that magnetic field, it will flip, or it will cause the waves to rotate anywhere between horizontal and vertical, or anything in between up to 360 degrees. It's variable. You don't know what it's going to do, but it's there. The good news, if you operate higher in frequency, when the wavelength becomes shorter, Faraday rotation becomes less and less of a problem. But on 2 meters, particularly 6 meters, if you do that, and I don't do 6 meters because it's really bad there. We'll talk about how to overcome that in just a second. Vibration fading, that's another minor kind of, but notable issue we have to deal with. Does anybody know what vibration fading is?
Wobbling.
It is. Exactly what it is. The physics involved with vibration fading are complex, but simply a wobble of the moon that takes place over the course of the month. You can't see it, but I'm going to show it to you. If you were to watch the moon, if you could see the month full every day for its full cycle, you would see not just 50% of the moon, you'd see actually 58% of the moon. And it wobbles. The following video is a time lapse. I'm going to show you this, but watch it. And on the video, you're going to see where the Apollo ships were, where they landed there back in the 60s and 70s. And watch the road, look at the locations move. You'll see also the declination over there on the side. But look at see the wobble in it, which it comes around, and all those landing spots are moving along, so you're seeing more or less of the moon. We can't see it every day, but that's happening over the whole month. So what does that do? It shifts the reflection areas of the moon around. You're hitting more craters or boulders, or it just has an effect. Not a huge effect, but one you just need to be aware of. Doppler shift, we talked about that just briefly. This really more affects receive than it does anything else, okay? But if anybody knows when a train goes by, what happens to the sound, same thing happens here. It will occur due to the relative movement of the Earth and Moon and will result in some frequency shift of the received signals. So if I'm transmitting on 2 meters at 144.114, okay, my signal coming back from the other station could be plus or minus anywhere in there, up to a certain frequency. That's the Doppler of the as the Earth and the Moon are going around each other. That shift changes up or down due to the movement of both bodies throughout the time the Moon is visible. So it's up, if you can't see it, we don't care. Can't do anything. Signal polarization. This is interesting too, because polarization changes can be caused by where stations are actually located around the world. And it can change every quarter of the distance. It adds to the effects of Faraday rotation. It can be helpful, but it may not be helpful, okay? But depending on where these stations are located, it will affect Faraday rotation effect. Stations can be polarized differently a quarter of the way around the globe. A signal being received horizontally in one area can be being transmitted vertically in another. I was doing that this morning. I was having to work a European station. I was running horizontal. He couldn't hear me on the horizontal. I had to transmit to him vertically and copy him horizontally. So I'm sitting there with a switch. I don't have a super complicated station. I'm actually switching and I'll show you in a minute, the vertical and horizontal poles of the arrays. The signal loss between H and V polarization is approximately 20 dB. So just as for you guys to know, 20 dB is 100 times. So if the guy we deal with all these weak signals, and he's got a good signal on the receiver at minus 25, well, he goes down 20 dB the other side, he ain't got no signal left. It's gone. So that is, the ability to switch poles is pretty important. So you ask yourself, what kind of equipment do I need to get started in this world? I know you've been waiting for this part. A computer of moderate speed, particularly if you're using the same computer for station logging, okay? You got to have something to run WSJT on. And if you're using it, it also integrates. Ray and I do this with one computer. You don't need a super fast computer, but you do need something moderate speed. An internet connection for monitoring the VHF EME chat room. Now, we use chat rooms because we like to talk back and forth. We also have to schedule that signal. This is not, you're not tuning up and down the band looking for signals, guys. I mean, this stuff has to be scheduled, or you have to know where they are. So everybody kind of broadcasts that way in the chat room. And even in EME contests, there's no such thing as not using spots, okay? You can use whatever you want, but you really need the ability to communicate with these guys around the world on these spotting networks. I've got those URLs in the handout. An accurate computer time reference for the internet, such as Dimension 4. Everybody know what Dimension 4 is? Okay, good. This will keep your computer in sync with the rest of the world. You cannot be off more than about a half a second. And that's getting, because of the way the computers decode, they're on a timer too. When they go in, just like FT8, once you start it, you don't really do anything with it. It handles all the decoding for you as long as you're in sync together. Otherwise, it doesn't decode. It doesn't do it, it just sits there blank. So you want to make sure the computer is really, really timed. WSJT suite of software, we use JT65 and or Q65 on EME. It also includes the critical moon tracking information from your location. If you go into WSJT and you go into View, there's an astrological drop down from your location, whatever your grid square is. I'm in FM17 UU. It will show you exactly where the moon is as it rises and goes down, both as and L. So we use that information for your home station. It'll be different in Richmond than it is where I am. You're going to need a high gain directional antenna of at least 10 to 13 dB, not dBi. Everybody know when you look in DX Engineering or any of the advertisers, they all got, every one of their antennas is done in dBi. Everybody know what dBi is? It's gain over isotropic. It's like a light bulb. Okay? It's not relevant.
It's theoretical.
It's theoretical. But that's the way they market it. So if you see something in there that says, hey, this thing's got 15 dB. Oh, no, it doesn't. Subtract 2.14 from it. That's the real gain of the antenna. And that's what you're looking for. You need DBD, gain over a dipole. You need to be able to, if possible, H and V polarization. That's the best to have, because now we talked about being able to counter the fade between the two caused by what? Faraday rotation. A good quality transceiver that is capable of covering the VHF and UHF frequencies that you intend on using, or a transverter to convert the VHF, UHF frequencies down. That's what I do, and I'll show you that in a minute. If at all possible, a mass-mounted low-noise preamp to not only amplify the received signal, but also to compensate for the coaxial cable losses from your antenna to the shaft. It will also need to be sequenced. Why does it need to be sequenced? You need to totally bypass that when you transmit it, you'll blow it up. So think about the coax run from your station to a high gain array. What's the loss of LMR 400? Probably 3 dB at 100 feet, something like that. Half your power's gone, right there. Same thing on the receiving end. It hurts your heart, or even worse. So you can make up some power with adding more power, but you can't make up gain in the receiver. So you do it at the antenna. So you use low noise preamp so it amplifies the signal at the antenna before it goes down the cable. Now everybody can't do that, but that's what you shoot for. You're going to need as much RF power output you can muster. My personal absolute minimum, and somebody asked me this earlier, would be 100 watts of RF power output. Now that's not a lot. Most people can get that. But you would also need the very best conditions in order to complete a QSO. Remember that, going back to the one with the red line? And I showed you when the moon is the closest to the Earth, and it's not in the view of the sun, that's when you can actually use low power and make a contact. Every dB you can get when dealing with the challenges we've discussed is important to completing an EME QSO. Now, I'm going to show you my station, and then I'm going to show you an actual QSO with an Italian station that I made the other day. First of all, somebody asked me about my, stop this, let me go back. This is my antenna array. It's a pair of M-square stacked horizontal and vertical polarized long boom antennas generating together a little over 16 dBd of gain. They're real long boom. Ray's real familiar with those. He helped me put it together. Yeah, fingers are still hurting with those.
And you gotta be careful on the rotator, making for the word top.
You can see up the top is both Yaesu rotators. The azimuth rotator is inside the tower, and that's only about 25 feet.
About 5 feet.
Yeah, and then the elevation rotor is up halfway up the boom. If you look right to the right of the rotator, that's the low noise preamp. See how close it is to it? The relay down the bottom is how I switch between horizontal and vertical.
So where's the relay?
That's the low, where you got the point there, and to the right of that is the low noise preamp. Down below the front leg of the tower is a high power 2-pole antenna switch. VUX, that's all SSB stuff.
So how tall is this?
About 25 feet. The tower itself is about 25 feet.
Okay.
So you don't have to be tall. You can be on the ground for all practical purposes, as long as you keep the critters off your antennas. You're good.
The consideration here was to have the antennas above, let's see, 1.1 amperes. In other words, above where amperes going through.
And you can, that's about 35 degrees of elevation. But a lot of times I'm working at 60 to 70 degrees of elevation. So the antennas, what happens to the backside, they're long. I don't need any deer from my area running into those things.
No.
So, again, if you look at also, I run 7/8 inch hard line to that antenna from the shack. So the overall coaxial loss is less than 1 dB to the shack. But that's at 2 meters. But that's 7/8 inch hard line running out there. It's on the ground. Okay. This is a kind of a rundown of my station, and I hope you guys can hear this.
I guess one of the first things we'll do is take a look at the equipment we're going to be using for the
Can everybody hear that?
demonstration. This is my second station in the shack. It's pretty much dedicated to VHL and UHL, even though I can use it on more bands also. What you're looking at is a Flex 6600 transceiver with a right beside to the right is a gallium microwave 2-meter transverter, and to the right is here to the right of it is the Flex Maestro C, and above it is an ASL rotator control system, and the CW keys, which are switch over here, and to scan around and see if you can move on with power meters, sequence controllers for the preamps out of the tower, and on the top there in the rack is a Gemini 2 1.2 kilowatt solid state 2-meter amplifier.
Okay, that was, whoops, I can't see anymore.
So it's different than like sending the signal reports like an FTA. It's like a different exchangeable way.
Whoops,
Well, we'll see it.
yeah, it's the same software. Every time you download WSJ, this is included.
Right.
Okay. The only thing is that I use Q65A. It's a different. They use them different. Depends on what frequency you're on. It's just a different mode. It actually goes possibly a little bit deeper, but it's kind of split. I use a configuration file to switch modes with in the software. This is a live QSO that I had, and this was just the other day. So we'll look at this. Oh, come on.
Oh, so the 000 or whatever.
The
replaces,
yeah, the I keep going back. When you're sending, if I'm calling you, here we go.
You're just too proud of your station. That's why you keep going back.
I'm trying to get to the video. All right.
It's like FTA, it's just a different report.
Right, so it just replaces that one.
Yeah, but it's still.
Okay, so I call it CQ.
Do you hear the audio?
Yeah.
There's a station calling us. So we'll see what this is. I've called CQ for about 4 or 5 minutes now. And we'll see what happens. It should decode here in about 10 seconds.
Watch the screen on the right and you'll see it move for the decode.
Make a contact if we can do this. So let's see how this goes.
See the pop up?
There's the decode.
Just like JT, just like FTA.
It's India 3 White Echo Kilowatt in JN55. We've worked him before, and his name is Mario, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I see him over here in the chat room now. So, I'm calling him back. He's got a -16 signal.
Which is really, really good on
Top right, sending him 000 right now, driving.
All right, see where I'm pointing up there at the top?
Copy him.
That's the signals coming down off the moon.
These little dots out here are the signal.
The baud rate we use is about 1 baud. That's what we transmit and receive it out.
The main vertical line is the signal. We'll transmit here for about another 7 seconds, and then we'll stop, and there's little spaces between where you see those 2 lines are the decoding of actually the delay compensation to the computer. So we should pop up here in just a second. All right, I'll start seeing now. These lines down here, the green show you signal is there, a little vertical tip. And towards the end of the QSO, I will try to move the camera a little bit so you can see it better. But right now, he's calling us back. You see right in here, all these vertical lines are the signals off the moon. It's called an orange show down there, just like you might see it in JT65. FT8. It works the same. Let's see what he does. Again, it's going to take another couple of minutes to finish the QSO. It should decode here in about 2 to 3 seconds.
It's not fast.
So I'm going to send him RRR, which means Roger, Roger, Roger. But I did copy here, Roger, be Roger my O. And you can hear the tones in the background. And
You should be able to hear the tones of the amplifier cooking now.
that was a -17, still a very nice signal for 2 meter moon balance. Very easy to copy. We were working a station early this morning with a -27 to -30 at the station in Germany. So he's quite a lot stronger. by 10 or 13 dB, which is huge. But Mario has a very nice station. I'm looking over here in the chat room. He's running 4x13, so he's got 4 stack. He's got a stack array of each frame of 4 13 element antennas, both horizontal and vertical. So he's got a very nice station. He's running a full kilowatt also. So let's see what we got. He's sending me a signal back here. Hopefully it's a 73s, and we can complete the QSO. We got about another 25.
The transmissions run for 48 seconds, and then there's a delay for 2.5 seconds, and then the decode takes place in the computer.
Right in there, and I haven't touched the antennas or moved them. They're probably peaking a little bit, but I don't want to do that right now, since he's got plenty of signal to copy. Another 6 seconds to decode, and we should get a 73s. And if I do, I will send that to him, which we did. So I'm going to send him 73s and roger that. So right now the contact is complete, and we'll go from there. Let's see if I can get the camera in just a little bit tighter. I cannot. There we go. Hopefully you can see the signal there on the that's a little bit better. You can see what he has sent in this area right here. This is a jump up here, just a false decode. But this is why the contact was tracing the last 3 minutes. And I'm sitting at 73 right now. And then I can start transmission and acknowledge him on the chat room. That is an EME QSO completed with Italy and in JN55.
Okay, going to do some Q&As because I know you're going to say, how do I do this? Okay.
2 questions.
Yep.
One is, why don't you use circular polarization?
Why did I not?
Why don't EME use circular polarization? Second question is, you can't actually hear that signal.
Think about how big a CP antenna would be at 2 meters.
Not that big. It wouldn't.
It's pretty big.
It isn't if you use phasing lines. I used to have.
Well, then they do use CP antennas, but it's also very expensive unless you know how to do your own. Okay, that's not something you just buy off the shelf a lot of places.
You can. I used to have one for EME. I mean, for a satellite. It probably didn't have 13 dB gain, but it had vertical and horizontal polarized.
Yeah.
And they did the circular using
And most of that work is done.
Reversible there.
And most of that work are done with CP antennas is normally done above 900 on what we would do it. There are some at 432, but most people when they get up there are using dishes because the path loss does what?
But theoretically, there would be an advantage to use.
Not necessarily. CP is just in between. I mean, polarization, CP polarization is an advantage in that you get both poles, but you're not at full. The difference between vertical and horizontal on CP is somewhere in between. So there is some loss in the CP.
It rotates polarization continues.
Well, that's just a right-hand swirl. You can do it either way you want to. I know
What I'm saying is polarization is a rotating vector, it's not one or the other.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that the CP antennas have a place, but normally they're too big to handle. At what we do, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper. Again, CP antennas, you don't have to be switching, but you still have to deal with loss between horizontal and vertical because it's in between.
No, I think I've read where the circular polarization reverses what hits it.
When it is, I'm sorry.
If you use CP antenna, and you hit the middle, let's say it's right hand, it comes back left hand.
Absolutely can do that. Again, it's almost like it's still got Faraday rotation taking place.
Right.
So when you go up right hand, you come back left hand, and it can come back anything in between.
And the other question was, you really can't hear these signals. The signals themselves are below the noise level. The computer takes them out, but you can't actually hear them.
I can't hear them at all.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. You can on some of the really, really strong stations when they're down around -15 to -14. It would be like the weakest CW signal you could barely copy. You can hear it, but generally the computer algorithms are decoding this for you. We're looking at stuff down at -30 dB. We can't hear anywhere near that. Probably the best a human can do if you got really good hearing is maybe -15 or 16. So we're dealing with that. But any other questions on polarization? Because I want to talk about how you guys, if you can do it with your stations, okay?
I just have one quick,
Yeah.
you were calling CQ, but
Mhm.
this was, you knew who was going to be responding. Oh, I thought it was so easy.
No, I didn't know. What I do is I tell in the chat room I'm calling CQ. So I put it out to the world. And then, yeah, I'm self-spotting myself. That's exactly what I'm doing. And then I'm just sitting there waiting. It could have been him. It could have been like right after him. I worked a Finnish station, and then I worked Czech Republic after that. So you never know. I mean, and they can call you multiple. Again, I can just select the one I want to work, and I make a chat room and say, you know, OK1 DDA, I'm working next. That's all I'm doing. I'm just lining them up. Everybody knows that horizontal antennas have vertical beam widths, right? Well, you got an antenna. Let's say you want to play with this. If you've got an antenna, I went back and I've got handouts too that can kind of walk you through this. If you've got an antenna that can produce about 10 dB of gain, real gain, and a 100-watt amplifier, you have the possibility of making moon contacts because of the vertical takeoff. At moon rise, most antennas have about 15 to 16 dB of vertical, okay? Now the problem is 30 degrees, I'm sorry.
dB.
I'm talking about dB. 30 degrees of beam width. We can't use the bottom because what's on the earth? It's no good. There's something called ground gain. That's another factor we can talk about, but I cover that more in the narrative, okay? If you can see the horizon and the moon coming up, you have approximately 90 minutes of potential operating time on the moon. Now you'll have to look at the charts and find out when the most ideal times are. And the best thing to do is to get on, and I've got those URLs, go on these websites and look at the URLs and watch what's going on. When the big stations like I3MEK or some of the big, there's a bunch of them. Most of them are all Europeans. They've got huge arrays. They can hear small level signals that I can't hear, okay? But you can get on there on the best days, you got 2 to 4 days during the month, and get on there and play on JT65, and all the setup is in here. And you get in the chat rooms, and particularly make a schedule with one of them, and they would go out of their way to try to work you. And they could, I might not hear you, but they probably can because they have huge arrays, very, very top-notch stations, and they're trying to generate activity. Europeans are a lot more into this than the US is. A lot more. I'm probably only 1 or 2 or 3 stations in the state of Virginia that do this. Any other questions? I mean, I would say that if you've got 100, more is better always, and your coaxial loss is not huge. If nothing else, go in and see if you can hear it. I think you can.
How is it an MSK?
Well, MSK is that's a very high speed, media scatter stuff.
So you actually probably have a better chance with.
Well, again, media scatter, that's only bouncing the signal off of meteors.
Right.
Okay, and so what they do, I forget what the baud rate is, something around 4,000. This is 1.
Yeah.
It's a little slower.
Right.
doesn't really matter either way, but any idea how long it takes the signal to get there and get back?
Yeah, well, it varies because of the moon distance, but as a general rule, count on about 2.5 seconds. The computer will calculate that for you, and it knows where the moon is in relationship to the Earth all the time. The algorithms in the computer, it knows. So when it's close, but generally there's about a 2.5 second delay between the time you stop transmitting that you can see the signal coming back. And that's, if you looked up there very closely, there are little lines in there, that's the delay the computer builds in for your delay time from transmitting to receiving. And then, there again, even if you have a horizontal, and you can use a vertical, if you've got just a vertical beam, it'll work with that too. Horizontal is really better towards the ground because they have what you call ground gain. Again, as the Earth as a reflector can add more gain to the signal up to 6 dB, but there's a caveat to that. It can also hinder you also, so it can be good and it can be bad because it's variable. Anything?
So you don't do MSK just because you know about?
I do MSK all the time.
Oh, so you've done it.
Oh yeah.
So you're like, yeah.
I do it on 6 and 2, but on 2 meters, it's very, very. The media burns are. The higher in frequency you go, the more difficult it is. Once you get up past about 220, it's kind of useless because it's so quick.
Yeah.
And even now on 6 meters, it's like you get up in the morning when and the meteors are still coming through pretty good. You put your beam up to the north or wherever you want to put it, and just run your computer in MSK mode. And it just takes over, and it'll do decode and everything. Here again, the baud rate, if it gets any kind of ping whatsoever, it's going to get the signal. It does. It's not dependent on polarization there.
So EME, it seems like you almost have a better shot.
I know, anyway, meters are a lot closer.
I didn't hear the.
It seems like EME, in a way, is almost more predictable, basically. It's just different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you know from you can look at the propagation graphs,
Right.
and you can look at all that stuff and know when it's going to be good or when you have the highest probability. Again, we're not dealing with solar numbers or solar flux or any of that stuff.
Or meteors.
It's going to because meteors are in the atmosphere. They're not in the magnet. Well, they could be in the magnetic layer, but it's not going to penetrate through it.
And they're totally random,
And they are random.
totally random.
Like we got this weekend, you guys want to work MSK. Guess what's going on this weekend? Perseus. So you get up in the morning, you sit there. I've heard it is to the point, it almost sounds like E-skip going on. And you can do it on media scales like that. You can do it on sideband even, okay? CW, but FT8 is so much faster. I mean, in the old days when we used to do it, it was a lot more difficult because you sit there and call the CQ for 15 seconds, listen for 15, call it. Those days are gone. Nobody does that anymore. Yeah, I've got, I tried a little MSK the other day. I didn't have any success with it. It's usually when after the sun gets up, medias kind of go away. Then, it's really better to do it at night, sometime after 10, 11, 12 o'clock, and then early in the morning.
But technically with EME, it almost seems like it's harder because you have to deal with polarization.
You don't have to deal with the polarization on a media scatter. Whatever, it just doesn't affect it. You don't have you don't hit the magnetic field like that and reflect it. And the computer's doing all the work really in MSK for 144.
Is it always like DX or closer in sometimes? Is it always DX or can it be closer in?
Yeah, we work closer in. You talking about like working stations within states here? Is that what you're saying? Caribbean and stuff? Yeah, they're all on. You have to be aware though that stations within say 150, 200 miles or more, you could be looking at. You're not looking at EME. You're looking at tropo. Okay, and you can tell the difference on the graph because all of a sudden the signal's present in the delay where it's supposed to be a delay. You're seeing signal. That's not EME. That's tropo. coming through. So what we try to do is workstations that are at least 3, 4, 5 grid squares away. You want to get away from it, or the antennas are pointed away from that station. Like if I'm trying to work a station in Delaware, if I'm looking at Delaware, the moon happens to be in that direction up to the north, to the east, he's going to hear me on tropo with that kind of power and antenna gain. It's useless trying to work them on EME because it doesn't count. I've worked about 67 or 68 countries on 2 meters, including Japan, New Zealand, Australia. I've got 48 states worked, and they're not what you would think I need. I need Wyoming and I need New Mexico to have WAS on that band. But it's a lot of fun. Again, if you're interested, I have some handouts. I'm available on email. That's in there. All the URL information is in there. So I hope that maybe this gets your attention. And if you're looking for something you haven't ever done before, give it a shot. You won't. If you do, you're not going to give it up, I can tell you. Thank you.
Thank you.